There she is, the most gorgeous woman you've ever seen in your entire life, walking in slow motion. And there you are, about to approach her because, well, she could be the one. But then out of nowhere it hits you, the dreaded approach anxiety. Negative thoughts, assumptions, and interpretations start to flood your mind. You start to hesitate and make up excuses. She doesn't look like she'd be interested. She's walking too fast. She's walking too slow. And before you know it, your soulmate is gone. Okay, now it's rarely ever that... Oh, wait, I should probably get in front of the camera. As I was saying, it's rarely ever that dramatic, but approach anxiety is something we've all faced at one point or the other. It's totally normal and you shouldn't beat yourself up for it, but at the same time, it's something that's obviously holding you back in life. So in this video, I'm gonna go over 3 psychological techniques that you can literally start using right now that can reduce your approach anxiety immediately and make it much more easier to approach women. Stick around to the end because there's a bonus tip that you do not want to miss. Let's dive in. So if you have approach anxiety, then chances are very high that there are certain negative thoughts, assumptions, and interpretations that you have when it comes to approaching women. So step 1 is you need to identify what these thoughts and beliefs are. To do this, you need to ask yourself 3 questions. What am I afraid will happen in this situation? What do I fear that she or other people around will think of me? And what will happen if my anxious thoughts are true? Now, sometimes it can be hard if you're sitting at home trying to remember what those negative thoughts are, which is why I recommend you actually go out and try to approach one woman at least, because this is going to resurface those negative thoughts that are holding you back. Step 2 is to go to the tattoo parlor and tattoo this on your forehead. My beliefs are not facts. Rather than always automatically assuming that your beliefs are true, you need to make it a habit to treat your beliefs as hypotheses or guesses. This is where examining the evidence comes in. Now that you know that all your beliefs are merely guesses, you can start to work on creating a more balanced and realistic view of the situation by examining all the evidence, especially the evidence that contradicts or disproves your anxious thoughts and predictions. So you need to get into the habit of asking yourself these 3 questions. How do I know for sure that my prediction will come true? What does my past experience tell me about the likelihood of my thoughts coming true? And are there other possible interpretations for this situation? And finally, step 3 is to weigh the evidence that both supports and contradicts your belief so that you can create a more realistic belief. Now you can do all of this in your head, but if this is all new to you, then I highly suggest that you start writing it in a journal at first for a couple of weeks. Writing things down enables a higher level of thinking and therefore more focused action. Slowly, as you start to make it a habit to challenge your anxious negative thoughts, new neural pathways will start to form in your brain, and these new pathways will become stronger and faster when eventually you can do all of this in your head automatically. Now, what if your beliefs and predictions are actually true? If you're afraid of getting rejected, then that is a very realistic fear because we've all been rejected by women, except Chuck Norris.
I'm not going to fight.
This is where the second technique comes in that is extremely powerful and has helped me overcome approach anxiety multiple times in the past. Challenging catastrophic thoughts requires the shifting of your focus from how terrible a particular situation or outcome is going to be to how you might be able to actually manage or cope with the situation if it were to actually occur. To overcome catastrophic thoughts, ask yourself these 4 powerful questions. So what? What if my fears actually come true? Will I care about this a month from now, a year from now? Does this really matter in the big scheme of things? And would this really be as terrible as I think? See, the problem is that many of us focus on the immediate consequence of a particular experience and forget that our pain or discomfort or embarrassment goes away shortly after. Like for example, for me, I used to be afraid of approaching women not because of the rejection, but because of the fear of the surrounding people seeing me approach and then judging me negatively. So what I found out after using these techniques and approaching dozens of women was that, even if some people do see you and negatively judge you for doing this, most people are so caught up in their own lives and in their own head that they immediately forget afterwards. So in the big scheme of things, it doesn't even matter. All right, so the sun's about to set, so let's go to the rooftop to see the amazing view and for this last technique. Well, unfortunately, the rooftop is actually closed and it doesn't open until May, but I figured I might as well just take you guys to the balcony instead as a compromise. So now let's just get back into the last technique. It's often much easier to challenge someone else's anxious thoughts rather than our own, which is why this final technique can become really useful for overcoming approach anxiety. Now imagine stepping out of the situation for a minute and seeing a close friend experience approach anxiety. What might you tell him? Another great way to use this technique is to think about how you might judge someone else who's approaching a woman. If you're scared of other people judging you when you approach women, then ask yourself, if I saw someone else approaching a woman, would I negatively judge them? What would I do or think in that situation? And chances are, you probably aren't going to negatively judge them, and you're probably going to even admire their ability and their courage for actually approaching. We caught the sunset, guys. Check out the sunset and this view. By the way, this is in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. We even got the snow still up on the mountains. Alright, it's getting pretty chilly out here. I'll see you guys on the inside. Alright, now these techniques should help you overcome your approach anxiety, but for some people it still might not be enough, which is why I wanted to include this bonus tip called Now the mother of all techniques to overcoming approach anxiety is to actually go out and approach real life women. Radical idea, I know. The techniques I shared with you here are helpful tools to make the process easier and doable, but they need to be combined with action. Because what happens is the more approaches you do, the more evidence you'll start to gain whether your anxious thoughts are true or not. And the more desensitized you'll get to the things that used to scare you, because you'll realize and experience that it wasn't as bad as you made it out to be. Now, one big issue is that even with these 3 techniques I shared with you, you still might find it very difficult to approach a woman that you find very attractive. And I know, because that's how it used to be for me, which is why I made a video here that's going to show you how to overcome this hurdle using what's called progressive desensitization or exposure practice.